Step aside, Jack Link and Slim Jim, because on this episode of From What I Gather, it's hunting season, and I'm going to show you how to make some venison pepper sticks that are guaranteed to make you the most popular hunter in the neighborhood. This is going to be a bit longer video than normal, but that's because if you're going to try this, I really want you to nail it. You work hard for the game that you get, and you want to turn out the best possible product. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is weigh and grind my meat. And I like to use 2 parts of lean game meat, in this case it's venison, to 1 part of pork fat. Now oftentimes I can go to my local butcher and he'll give me pork fat trimmings at a really good price, but it's his busy time of year, he's making sausages, so I had to go with the more expensive fancy pork bellies here, but these do make excellent sausage, so no problem with that at all. So, all my meat is partially frozen. That makes it so when I grind the meat, the grinder slices the pieces clean rather than smushing them, and it makes for a nicer product. So, I'm going to get all my meat out, weigh it up, and cut it into chunks that my grinder can easily handle. Get the grinder set up now. Everything's very cold. It's been sitting outside and it's really cold out here today. I'm going to be using this 1/8 inch faceplate. And I like 1 passer with this for these pepperoni sticks. I think it gives it just about the right texture. If you want to run it through twice, you can. It'll give you a little more emulsified, hot doggy kind of texture. But I think 1 pass is great through this. And again, everything is very cold. My meat is partially frozen, and that's going to keep everything in here very cold throughout and make it so I get a nice clean cut on all this. Alright, let's get started. There we have it. Now let's move on to seasoning. Now since I'm doing a demo today, I'm going to go ahead and use a seasoning kit for these. Now when I make my own, I've been doing it long enough, I use my own cure and spices. This is a very good product. It comes with the seasoning, and it comes with the cure, and also there's a binder in here, which is very important, not only to bind the meat together, but to bind it to the casing. I've made these in the past when I was getting started and had the casing come loose after these chilled down. It's just really ugly, not appetizing at all. So this is a very good way to get started. I encourage you to try this, or there's any number of kits out there. Now using the instructions that came with the kit, I've gone ahead and measured up the seasoning and the cure. It's very important to get the right amount of cure in your sausage, because not enough of this cure and you could grow some nasty bacteria and make yourself sick. Too much of the cure can also make you sick. So the standard is 1 level teaspoon per 5 pounds of meat. So let's make sure and get that right. I've also got a couple of cups of very cold water. That's going to kind of just help mix everything together and make it a little tacky. And then I like to add a bunch of red chili because I just can't leave things alone and I like them spicy. So let's get this going. I'm just gonna kind of add some meat, add some spice, in batches, layers if you will, before I mix it. And this is very, very cold. It should hurt your hands to do this. If it's hurting your hands, you know you're doing it right. So then I'll put some seasoning on there. Ooh. Now you notice I didn't mix the cure in yet. I want to dissolve the cure in the water. And that way I can get a better distribution throughout this meat. Alright. Now I'll begin mixing. This is really gonna hurt. They do make a machine for this, but I don't make enough sausage to justify buying one. Not yet. Oh boy, you can feel that. If you want to replace this water with some cold red wine, you are doing things right. But for the sake of this demo, I'm going to do it by the recipe. I feel like I got a pretty good mix now. And if you want to taste, and I recommend that you test this, what you can do is just make a small little patty and fry that up like your breakfast sausage and taste it. And you can adjust from there. If you think you need a little more of the seasoning, throw it in there. If you want, you know, garlic or more red pepper, whatever, you can adjust. But fry yourself up a little bit and give it a taste to make sure you're going to have a good sausage that you like when you're done. Now I like to put this out in the refrigerator overnight and kind of let those spices and the cure mingle in there and do their business. It's optional. You can go ahead and start stuffing your casings now, but I like to let it rest. So I'm going to go ahead and put that out, and we will pick this up tomorrow. The time has come to stuff the sausages. So let's talk a little bit about equipment. For doing these pepperoni sticks, I like a dedicated sausage stuffer because it takes a good deal of force to push that sausage mix down through a narrow horning into the casing. And with this dedicated stuffer, I can deal it pretty much as much force as I need. I'm using a collagen casing. These are 21mm casings. This is a extra long 3/8 inch horn. The collagen casings are great. They're edible and they're very uniform throughout. They're the exact same size for 50 feet they have in this bag, so it's a really good product for these pepperoni sticks. Also a yardstick because I want to make a good uniform length, and that'll make it so everything cooks equally and it's just nice and pretty. The stuffer's ready to go, so now we'll start packing it. I like to kind of pack the meat a little, get rid of some of these air pockets that are on the outside, then push it down into the bottom. Yeah. You don't want air pockets in here, so pack it well to keep those to a minimum. everything is still very cold here. Well, we're going to slide that casing right on the horn. All the way down there. Just pull out the tip, maybe ½ inch. And you'll crank away. Start out slowly so you get the feel for how much you want inside of there. Just barely holding the casing in place, not applying much pressure at all. The more pressure you apply, the more stuffing is going to go into your casing. Now, this takes a little while to get the feel for, but you'll get it. And I wish I had a mile-long counter, but I don't, so I need to stop and adjust frequently. Oh, isn't that pretty? Right here, I don't know if you see it, a little tiny air pocket got in there, no problem. Just take one of these little corn handles, pop it. There we go. Down to the end there. And when I get to the end, I'll just reverse crank a little bit to keep the stuffing from coming out anymore. There we go. Now we're ready to measure and cut these guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure and cut my sausage. For my purposes and my smoker, I'm going to cut these at 30 inches. That is very much dependent on the gear you're going to be using to smoke. Said good uniform size within diameter and length is just going to make a nicer product when you're done. Who would have thought it had worked out like that? That was lucky. Okay, so now I'm going to go hang these on my dowels, and these are going to sit at room temperature for an hour. Meanwhile, I'm going to stuff up about another 20 pounds of this stuff. Done stuffing the sausage, and the next step is to let these guys hang at room temp for a good hour, hour and a half. You really want to bring your sausage up to temp very slowly through the whole process, and that's just going to condition it and make it even better when you're finished. So I got these spaced out so they're not touching each other and all fairly even across the bottom. So I'm just going to let these hang. Give me a little time to take the dogs out for a quick run, and then we'll begin the smoking. Okay. Alright, the next stage is going to be to dry out the casings. These collagen casings need to be dried out to firm them up, and also it'll help them take the smoke better. So stage one is going to be an hour and a half in a 120 degree smoker. And it's really hard for me to keep my smoker this low, so I actually keep the door a little bit cracked right here, and that seems to get me by. Hour and a half at 120. 125. These are all nice and dry now, and it's time to start smoking them. So I filled up my water bath down below, and I've got some hickory chips going. You can use whatever wood you like on these. I like hickory or apple. I'm also going to insert a probe into one of these sausages right down in the middle of it, keep track of the temperature. and bump the heat up to 140 for the smoking. Now the longer you keep it at this phase, the drier your sausage is going to be on the inside, and that's a matter of personal preference. So you could take some trial and error, and you'll eventually figure out how you like it. I've been going an hour and a half at 140, and you can see these guys are really starting to take on a real nice red color from the smoke and the cure. Now we're going to go ahead and bump it up to 150 for the next hour or hour and a half or so. We're going to continue this slow and steady climb until we hit about 170, 180, and we get an internal temperature of that sausage of 155. The real goal here is to keep all those little fat bits that you can see in there intact and in place. Because if those guys melt and run out, which will happen at about 180, then you end up with a sausage full of grease on the outside and a little gritty sausage on the inside, and it is really not appetizing. You're done if that happens, so keep a good eye on the temp inside the smoker as well as inside of the meat. About the color I want, so now it's time for the final push. I'm going to raise the temp to about 170, no higher than 180, and keep a real close eye on the meat thermometer and stop these when they hit 155. Alright, we hit our target temp, everything's looking good. Now the next step is to shock these to stop them from cooking any further. You can dip them in an ice bath, but right now it's nice and cold out here, so I'm just going to hammer them with the hose. Now I'm going to let that smoker cool off real good. It's only going to take a second because it's sub 40 degrees out here. And then I'm just going to let these sit out here all night long until they get totally chilled out. There you have it. Everything's all cooled off and ready to go. All that's left is to go trim these up and go make a bunch of new friends. So good luck hunting, and I hope you try this out.